And in certain respects, Judaism has quite an anarchic character. It's not naturally drawn towards personality cults. You'll be familiar with the fact that even though in the biblical narrative, Moses is the central personality within the Pentateuch, the most important work, the Torah, for Judaism, nevertheless, when we celebrate those events within the calendar on Passover, and there is the narrative, the Haggadah, that tells the story of the Exodus from Egypt, Moses' name is conspicuously absent. In fact, it only appears once because of a biblical passage that appears, but as far as the narrative itself, he's not there at all. Why? Because Judaism is precisely trying to avoid the personality cult. In fact, more than that, Judaism, or the Jewish community already in the first exile, instituted mass public education. The idea behind it that you shouldn't need to depend upon the priest or the select few for knowledge of your heritage. Everybody should be the direct possessor of the heritage, and everyone has a direct access to God. And that perhaps explains a little bit of, if you like, the rugged individualism that tends to be there within Jewish tradition, and you know the witticism, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, that to some extent rebels against authoritative leadership. And that perhaps is the good side of the bad side of our history, which we've often got maybe a disproportionate bad press within other religions, of the way we've related to prophetic figures and to leaders. And it's true, if you look at the Hebrew Bible, you can see that we're not very good as a people in accepting authority and leadership. And there is something of a rebellion, which often gets us into hot water and difficulty. But there's a positive side to that. The positive side is you don't simply do what you're told. You want to be shown its value, its validity, its moral significance. You want to be convinced that it's right. This means within the Jewish tradition that the role of leadership is disproportionately intellectual. This has sometimes created problems historically, and there have been rebellions against that, like in the Hasidic movement, which was demonstrably anti-intellectual. But this means that the model, the archetype leadership role within Judaism is not the charismatic leader. Certainly not within the last 2,000 years, who says, God appeared to me in a dream and I say to you, or do this because I say to you, you must do it. No, leadership is the one who is able to show on the basis of the sources that this is what God wants you to do. And therefore, really, the archetype of Jewish leadership is the one who can facilitate the people's understanding of the divine will. Now, that also requires certain charismatic capacities, but it has to be rooted in the intellectual sources, has to be rooted in access to the sources, in scholarship, and the capacity to be able to explain, to articulate.